What's up, powerful party people? I'm back with Timeless Tarot, and today we are talking about the aces. In the tarot, there are 4 aces, and the 4 aces are all based on the suits of the tarot, as well as the 4 elements that comprise the earth and all things that contain life. So we have the Ace of Pentacles, which represents earth energy. We have the Ace of Wands, which represents fire energy. We have the Ace of Water, which represents, the Ace of Cups, which represents water energy. And then we also have the Ace of Swords, which represents air energy. So all 4 of these elements are natural elements that make up the universe. And the 5th element is also known as like ether. And ether is kind of like the activating element that when all these 4 elements come together, they create a big bang, and the big bang is kind of what we refer to when you hear the word ether. You're welcome to look up ether. Ether in the dictionary represents or has the meaning of the heavens or any space beyond the celestial space that we're able to locate and see with like technology and astronomical tools like telescopes and things of that nature. Ether is also the root word of the term ethereal, which means heavenly. So if you think about anything that's heavenly, anything that makes you feel like transcendent, transcending beyond the natural environment, that is what the term ethereal means. And that's also the root terminology of the word ether. I'm not here to talk to you about ether today though, because ether is not one of the 4 elements. And it's also not one of the 4 suits that's represented in the tarot. So we'll just be talking about earth, air, water, and fire, also known as pentacles, swords, cups, and wands. So we're back to talk about the Ace of Cups. And before I jump in, I'm going to discuss a little bit about the water element. It is representative in the tarot of our spirit. It represents our connection to a higher power. It represents what keeps us alive. It represents our emotions and our creative energy. The water element represents our creative energy. It represents what keeps us connected and alive and softens and soft in the sense that we are aware of how we're feeling. It represents relationships and our ability to connect with others, because water is the one thing that no one is the enemy of. Fela Kuti has a song called Water No Get Enemy. And it means that even if water were to come and wash away your home, if it were to destroy your family, if it were to even cause illness or death, you're still going to need a drink of water in an hour. Like as you're grieving and crying, you're still going to need to clean yourself with water. You're still going to need to become water in some way or be in contact with water in some way. Water is one of the main parts of nature that no matter what it does, we always are reliant upon it because water gives life. So in the tarot, water represents life. It also represents our spirit. It represents our creative energy and the way that we connect with spirit in creative ways. So in many religious faiths, religions and faith systems, there's the practice of ablution, or like a ritual washing in which we purify our bodies prior to communing with the divine or praying. In Islam, there's ablution. In Catholicism, typically when you walk into the cathedral, you'll dip your fingers in holy water and like do the sign of the cross on your forehead. Some people will do it across their chest, just to bring God closer to our bodies in the form of water. Typically, when we are doing processes of giving gratitude or any sort of like spiritual ritual, water is involved. Whenever I'm doing tarot readings, I typically will have some sort of fresh water nearby. We constantly need to be hydrated, so water is a daily and consistent, frequent part of our lives. And now that I'm even talking about this card, or I'm about to talk about the Ace of Cups, I really think that just drink some more water. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing, just drink some water. Stop what you're doing, drink some water. I'm gonna stop what I'm doing and drink some water right now. And you see I keep a big ass bottle of water too, because I'm not playing. As a Pisces, I need to drink my water, but so do you, regardless of what your sign is. Water is the element that cleanses us. Water is the element that keeps us healthy. It keeps us alert. It keeps us regulated. It allows us to self-regulate. And it also allows us to do these things for ourselves so that we can connect with others. All land borders are separated by water. On the coast of every continent, there's water. Water is the great connector. It's the great thing that keeps us all bound together as one, even if we feel that we're separated. Because as the saying goes, no place, no person is an island. Every island still has some other landmass that it's connected to by way of water. Every person still has some other person or living thing that it's connected to by way of emotion and by way of spirit. So in the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, the Ace of Cups or the Ace of Water also, is depicted as a disembodied hand, which can also be considered the hand of God or the hand of spirit, offering a cup of overflowing water. And typically that cup will have a bird or some sort of coin or like living thing above it, dropping something within it or going into that cup. And this is just in the Rider-Waite Tarot, which is like more of the mainstream tarot. In other decks, there are definitely other depictions. For example, the Tarot of the Orishas, the Ace of Cups depicts a dolphin kind of like levitating above water, which is just so beautiful to me. And in the Black Tarot, it depicts two people, one sitting in a chair and one standing behind them, adorning them with a wreath of flowers. And actually, I'm noticing for the first time that this person has flowers in their beard. If you look at the card closely, the flowers are actually decorating their beard. So it's kind of like this person is noticing that it's like the love, the flowers, the things that grow from the earth, the beauty of the earth is almost like coming out of them because they're so full of beauty themselves that the earth recognizes it in them and grows from them. And I really hope that makes sense. Just slow it down, watch it back if it didn't. But what I love about the Ace of Cups is that this card represents a divine assist in the form of emotional rejuvenation, emotional support. It's kind of like, imagine yourself walking through a desert and being extremely tired and thirsty. And suddenly there is just like a good Samaritan or a support system, someone who really loves you that gives you exactly what you need. It's like getting that replenishment full of electrolytes, full of all of the things that you really need. It's like a mother's breast milk for a newborn baby. Breast milk contains everything a baby needs, all of the nutrients that a baby needs to grow strong, to the point where the baby does not need anything except for their mother's milk. Ace of Cups is kind of like that. It's like a mother's milk. It's like the exact style and temperature and amount of love that someone may need when they're experiencing just a really low emotionally or spiritually. I like to think of the Ace of Cups as the reminder that it's impossible to give love and support and emotional connection to others if our cup is not full. If we do not give ourselves the emotional love, the affirmation, the spiritual connection, and the self-regulation that we need, there's no way that we're going to be able to offer it to others. And I love that in the Ace of Cups, it's almost always depicted as an overflowing. There's an abundance. There's an abundance of what's needed to sustain the love and the health and the connection and the support that is required for someone or a relationship to be healthy. There's an abundance of it. We're not going to run out. It's not going anywhere. And the reason for that is we have embraced the idea that loving ourselves is the best form of love that there is. And I think that the Tarot of the Orishas does the best job of depicting this. So I find dolphins to be a perfect animal example to be depicted in the Ace of Water or Ace of Cups, because dolphins are one of the only animals that explores aspects of love solely for the purpose of finding joy and pleasure, and for no other reason. They're the animals that have sex with each other, or play, or sing, or, you know, jump out of water and create like beauty just for the sole purpose of doing it, and not for the purpose of procreating, not for the purpose of hunting. Like, these are one of the only animals that have been studied to my knowledge that does these things and engages with their environment and with each other solely for the purpose of play and pleasure and for no other reason. And that's a really big energy of the Ace of Cups. The Ace of Cups comes to ask you, what are the ways that you self-care? What are the ways that you play and take care of yourself and affirm yourself, that you just do it because you love it and because you love yourself? The Ace of Cups comes to remind us that self-love is the best kind of love that exists, and the better we get at doing it, the better we'll be able to offer it to others, right? So this person who has flowers growing out of his beard, the reason that he's able to enjoy love from others is because he's become so good at loving himself that it's literally pouring out of him. It's literally pouring out of his body, or out of his facial hair, if you will. And when we love ourselves, when we take the time and care to give ourselves the nourishment that's so good for us that we can almost like sustain our life off of it, it's kind of like if you, every time you walk past a mirror, you're like, look at that beautiful, intelligent, gorgeous thing that God made and put here on earth just to enjoy life. If you were to say that to yourself every day in the mirror, and you, to the point where you believe it and it sustains your life, other people would see it radiating off of you, and it attracts the people who either want to feel like that themselves or already feel like that themselves. It attracts them to you, and they want to pour that into you because you're so full of it that you're overflowing with love. And when we overflow with love, the water or love, connection, spirit that overflows from us attracts more of it to us. It's kind of like in the Nine of Cups. The Nine of Cups is a card that indicates wish fulfillment, but it's a 9. It's not a 10, so we haven't fully gotten there yet, but it's so close because we are so full of the joy and abundant feeling of already having it. Like, we're acting as if it's already come true, and that is why it's able to come true. And the Ace of Cups is kind of like that because it's like you're overflowing with it, so there's an abundance of it. And I really love in the Black Tarot that there's a basket here with flowers, but there's also like a path behind these folks showing how many flowers there are. These flowers may have been planted before they were even born, but it's that inherited self-love and that continued maintenance of self-love that allows them to continuously enjoy the abundance that's within them and around them. I also noticed in this card that these folks seem to be a little bit older. One looks a little bit older than the other, or a little bit wiser or more mature than the other, just based on what they're wearing. One is more relaxed, clearly seated in a chair, wearing a hoodie and wearing like a little bit more comfortable clothing, whereas the other has a hat on, has a blazer and a tie. So this person seems to have a little bit more life experience or wisdom than this person sitting here. But it's almost like they've inherited, like this person sitting in the chair, the younger person, the seemingly younger person, can love themselves so much because they've inherited the practice from the person who's older and wiser than them. I love looking at this card as like perhaps it's like a future version of you with the present version of you, or the present version of you with the past version. And the practices that you do now to love yourself, to affirm yourself, to remind yourself that you're worthy of playing just for the purpose of play, and experiencing love and joy just for the purpose of experiencing love and joy, that is the inherited practice and mindset and belief system of this younger version that allows the abundance to continue to flow. I believe that our elders who teach us to love ourselves, and our elders who teach us that love is a renewable resource, they are the reasons why we're able to continue those practices and continue to renew that resource. I want to also say that the Ace of Cups could represent new love, but it could also just represent a renewed perspective of self, the renewed knowledge and wisdom that we are the fountain, we are the source of abundance. And as long as we continue to nurture and believe in that abundance, we are able to attract it with little to no effort. I would recommend that if this is resonating with you, to also watch the Ace of Pentacles, because the Ace of Pentacles and the Ace of Water or Cups are both feminine energies. And the reason for that, or one of the ways that we can kind of see this embodied in the illustrations, is the open hand. An open hand indicates receptivity. So if the hand is open, it's like willing to receive and ready to receive. Earth and water are both natural elements that receive what we put into them. If we drop something on the ground, over time, the earth will absorb it. If we drop something into the water, even more quickly, the water will take it away, right? But we also gain so much abundance and so much nourishment from these elements. From the earth, we gain fruits and vegetables and crops. Literally, candy grows out of the ground for us. And from the water, we gain so many delicious seafoods. If you're a pescatarian or a meat eater, you may love the idea of seafood, like a platter. But we also gain like knowledge and wisdom from the ocean. Just spending time on the beach, just like closing your eyes, sitting by water, and listening to the sounds of waves does so much for our mental and physical and emotional health. And the more that we learn how to regulate these waters, our emotions and our spirit, the more able and wise and efficient we become at expressing our emotions and at connecting with others. Because emotions are data points for how we are experiencing the world and how we might want to shift or negotiate with our environment and with each other so that we can have an even better experience, an even healthier experience. I would also love to highlight the air creature, the bird on the card. In the Rider-Waite Tarot, it's very common to see a bird or a flying creature on the Ace of Cups. And if you think about beaches or places where there are large natural bodies of water, you'll often find birds, because birds are creatures that can take a different perspective and look at things in ways that creatures who are landlocked cannot. And when we're dealing with our emotions, it's really important for us to try and see from a different perspective, because our emotions are ours, right? They typically start within, but sometimes when we only look at them from our personal perspective, we may not really be getting the full story. We may not really be able to see the abundance or the resources that we have to support us with dealing with our emotions. We also might become emotionally overwhelmed or enmeshed in a story that we're telling ourselves that might not actually be supportive or even true or helpful in what we're really experiencing. So birds can symbolize communication. They can also just symbolize that different perspective or that more wise perspective. They also just represent like using the information that we gain from our emotions to inform how we want to proceed. When a bird is flying over a body of water, the bird is not just enjoying the waves and the beauty, but the bird is also looking to see, where's my food? Where do I need to go in order to get lunch today? Or where can I go and find something that will nourish me later on, that will nourish my family later on? And so the Ace of Cups, when it pops out in readings, it can be an indicator that there's something that needs to be explored in order to find, because there's something there. There's something that we can gain. Perhaps there's even a pentacle that we can gain. There's some abundance. There's some sort of wisdom or glory that we can gain by exploring how we feel. And emotions are absolutely one of the least appreciated and most underestimated resources that we have in our human experience, because emotions are things that allow us to learn about ourselves, but they also allow us to understand our history and where we're coming from. A lot of the ways that we feel and the ways that we navigate the earth and navigate challenges and various circumstances and situations are based on inherited emotions. A lot of people of African descent do not enjoy water or appreciate kind of the joy and pleasure and abundance that can be found in water and emotions, because we've inherited a lot of sadness, a lot of pain, a lot of loss in our history, from being enslaved, from being over-sexualized, from being objectified, from being overworked and abused by oppressive powers that be. And when we approach our emotions in that way, it's almost like we're allowing chaotic waves to scare us away from the beauty and peace that come after a storm. It's almost like we forget that we were made to play both on land and in water. It's almost like we forget that, like dolphins, we can come up for air before we decide to go back and explore what there is to find. And so I believe that the Ace of Water can talk about fear, but it can also talk about the courage and reward. It can also talk about the reward and abundance that awaits when we find the courage to face the fear of needing to hold our breath underwater, to face the fear of needing to perhaps soften or change momentarily just for the just long enough to be able to explore and learn and come up with more wisdom, with more clarity, with greater ability to self-regulate and connect with our past selves and each other. So I hope that this quick explanation of the Ace of Cups or Ace of Water supports you in your own personal readings and also in the way that you approach nuance, not just in the tarot, but also in navigating emotions and connections with others. And I hope that you feel inspired to not only navigate your emotions with more courage, but also express your creative talents and gifts, because there actually is so much beauty and abundance to be had when we allow ourselves to transform and engage with the water at our disposal. There's so much abundance there. So if you like the video, go ahead and like it down below. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Welcome back, everyone, to the Soul Tree. I'm back again to talk to you about the Ace of Air, also known as the Ace of Swords. So before I jump in talking about the Ace of Swords, I would like to talk a little bit about the element of air. So in the Tarot of the Orishas, the element of air looks just like this. And air is an element that is extremely flexible. It represents communication. It represents the way we think and learn. It represents our mindset and the information that we gather and gain, as well as the information that we use to improve or destroy our circumstances, all right, for better, for better or worse. My throat chakra, if you notice I just coughed, my throat chakra is doing things, but the air element is represented by the throat chakra. So the way that we speak, the way that we think, the air element kind of has dominion over the upper chakras from the throat, the third eye, and the crown, which is the way we think, what we can imagine, and what we say. So the element of air is an element that is necessary for us to sustain life, for us to engage with life comfortably, and also for us to be able to listen and hear and think and speak. So the way that we form thoughts is all tied up in air. It's like when you think of something or something comes to you out of thin air, the reason that we say that is because air is where ideas live. It's where creativity and invention live. There is a quote that goes, "There's nothing new under the sun," but because there's nothing new under the sun, it's kind of cool to think that the air can bring us ideas that may have existed before, but no one really did anything with. So when we have a new idea, it's kind of a humbling and sweet thought to imagine that this is an idea that someone had before, but perhaps they didn't have the resources that I have, or perhaps they didn't have the courage that I have or the support that I have. And for that reason, I can use this new idea and create something with it that has not existed before. So let's go ahead and dive in. I will actually also like to add that the word inspiration or aspire or perspire, that suffix spire, all of that has to do with air. So in spirit, air is also where spirit lives. Air and water are very similar. The only difference between air and water is that one is wet and one is dry. But also that one is feminine, which is water, which has more to do with our intuition. And one is masculine, which is air, which has more to do with our mind, our mental, our mental state, and the ways that we calculate. The ways that we calculate or put things together in order to make meaning or make sense of them, if you will. So, in the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, the illustration of the Ace of Air depicts a disembodied hand coming from a cloud or, some undefined region or zone that is holding onto a sword. The sword is pointing upward and typically has a crown on the tip of it, which represents truth gained by being earned, truth gained by having the humility to align yourself with some higher, wiser, more intelligent source that allows you to then embody that intelligence and embody that wisdom. The Ace of Swords card frequently reminds me of King Solomon, a biblical character, which is also to me embodied by the King of Swords. Lots of barking right now happening from our neighborhood dog friends. And I just think that's interesting. So perhaps that is confirmation for you, or perhaps the story of King Solomon could be interesting or useful for you because the dogs kind of started barking right when I started talking about him. But let's move off of that energy and get into the meaning of the Ace of Swords. In the Black Tarot, it's depicted as a character who seems to be dressed for business, but also is holding a knife. And as you can see, like the jacket she's wearing is a little bit off of this side of her body, which to me means that she's standing on business, but she's not afraid to get messy if need be. It's kind of like my tea and incense can turn into a Glock and a blunt real quick if necessary. So the sword or knife that is depicted in this card does have an element of violence, and I will relate that to the masculine energy of this card. Not that masculinity is violence, but masculinity is the more forceful energy that's not receptive, that's more like I will take action based on what I know, or I will say the truth even if it can be cutting or even if it may be hurtful because it's necessary. So always if necessary. And when the Ace of Swords pops out in a tarot reading, it always to me indicates like a necessary learning, a necessary truth, a necessary communication. Because once again, air represents communication, thoughts, words. I also love the idea of swords and words being very similar energies. When we say things, when we make statements, we are giving something that could be contested, that could be, could tap on a few people's nerves. When we are expressing ourselves, especially when it is divinely called or divinely inspired, it's not always going to be received the way we may hope or the way other people may want it to land. But when it's necessary and when it's a fact or when it's truthful, it's something that is coming from a place of the desire to improve, the desire to upgrade, the desire to make better. That is also very big Aquarian energy. Aquarius is the rebel, the inventor, the sign associated with like technological upgrades or upgrades in your mental state. It's the sign that is the great connector. It will make the uncomfortable statement or identify the uncomfortable thing or create the new item or make visible what was invisible before in order to support the collective, in order to make sure that humanity is supported. When I see the sword on the Ace of Swords, when I see the crown on the Ace of Swords, it makes me think of words that are respected and also respectful. If the king or queen, if the monarch or the leader of a society is not respectful and in harmony with their people, the people will not allow them to be their leader. Leadership and power require I don't want to say approval. Can you help me with my words? They require the election. They require the support of the people who place that specific leader in power. Power is an energy that requires that there are multiple people backing them up, right? And so if you've ever heard I just saw a TikTok recently that was like, the first person who ever said, "You in what army?" That quote kind of indicates that if you don't have an army behind you, if you don't have supporters behind you, what you say or what you do doesn't have any power here. And the Ace of Swords is definitely the energy of what I say is not just coming from a place of self-centeredness. It's not coming from a place of unsupported or, unresearched assumption. What I'm saying is factual and it's grounded in evidence, and I know it because I've experienced it. I know it because I did my research. I learned it, and that is why it's valid, and that is why it deserves attention. The Ace of Swords is a card of attention. It's a card of focus. It's a card that indicates that effort and time have been put into learning and supporting this idea to the point where it has created a new paradigm where truth and clarity can reign. And if you take a look at this card here from the Black Tarot, this person standing here is like someone who is assuming a new position. Perhaps they have never been in this position before, and they finally are seeing clearly that this space was made for them. Perhaps this person was afraid before to step up and take on this role of the knife master or the word master or the public speaker. Perhaps they always knew that they had this quality, but it was just, they were under an illusion or impression that they were not worthy or they were not capable of taking advantage or stepping into the limelight or focusing their energy and attention enough to say what they really meant. And the Ace of Knives, the Ace of Swords, is indicating that they've used that air energy, they've focused enough, they've learned enough and grown enough to know that no, this time, this airspace is for me. It was made for me, and what I have to say is important, and what I have to say is necessary, because it's not just coming from my ego. It's not just coming from my fear. It's coming from my work. It's coming from all of the various places I've been and my lived experience and all the connections I've made. And it's divinely inspired. And when I say divinely inspired, I'm saying that because air is also so related to spirit. Spirituality has a lot to do with air. Often we will burn incense or sage or rosemary or an herb or palo santo to clear the air energy or the air space around us prior to doing a reading. Often we may ring a sound bell, like you've probably seen me do before in previous videos, just to reset the energy that may have been in the space before, prior to inviting spirit to support me as I interpret and communicate with you all. You'll also notice that in the Tarot of the Orishas, the Ace of Air is just one dove. It's one white dove, and the color white does indicate pure spirit. It indicates purity in spirituality, purity and clarity of mind, sound and respectful and inspired words. The symbols down here are Aquarius, Uranus, and Saturn. So sometimes the truth does hurt. Sometimes the truth is rebellious. Sometimes the truth goes against tradition. But when it's divinely inspired and when it's the ace, it means that it's clear, it's channeled. It's like a direct channel from God. It's like sound that was directly channeled from the heavens, from the ethers. It's like the first time you hear a song and 5 seconds in, you're like completely mesmerized. You're like, who made this? How could this person come up with these lyrics that are just speaking directly to my soul? When the Ace of Swords or Ace of Air comes out in a reading, often it means that you have something important to say, that when you say it, it's going to be speaking directly to someone's soul. Or there's something that you need to hear, and when you hear it, you're going to know because it's going to hit you directly in your spirit. It might hit you in your solar plexus. It might allow you to imagine or see something with your third eye or your brow chakra, in your mind's eye, if you will, that perhaps you were never able to imagine before, or you may have been too afraid to imagine before or see before. The Ace of Air also indicates that if you see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand like that Ace of Pentacles. It's like the divine sword comes down and cuts away at any clouds or illusions that may have been preventing you from being able to see clearly or hear the truth clearly or speak your truth clearly. And that divine sword that comes down and cuts brings down the crown that sits on your head and reminds you that you are worthy of hearing the truth, you are worthy of knowing the truth, and that you are smart and intelligent enough to share the truth as well. The Ace of Swords reminds us that we each have our own experience that we have gone through to earn our stripes or our crown, if you will. No one else has the same path as us. No one else has the same story to share that we do. And each of our individual stories is incredibly important to the collective knowledge of who it's possible to be and how it's possible to connect with spirit. So the air element also being about mindset can also indicate that perhaps there are truths that we have inherited in our ancestry that served us in the past, or like survival skills that we've become accustomed to, that perhaps need a little bit of an upgrade or a little bit of innovation so that we can continue to support and sustain and defend ourselves without feeling the need to be in like warrior mode all the time. When the sword is pointed upward, it can come down and cut, but it also represents the clarity of mind to know that it's not always necessary to yell or to speak even. Sometimes there's power in simply taking a breath, because swords is air energy. the more that we take breaths, the more relaxed our mindsets are, the more regulated our emotions and bodies are. That allows us to clear our minds of anything, any old stories or past pain or hurt that we may have taken on by the words and thoughts of others. And it allows us to be able to use our air resources like the internet, like our ability to create new stories, like our vocabulary, like our name even. If we have like names that perhaps are a little bit more difficult for people to pronounce but have very incredibly deep and powerful meanings like mine, these are also resources that we can tap into without feeling the need to like, defend our importance or defend our right to speak our truth. Sometimes there's power in also just sitting calmly, taking deep breaths, and meditating and imagining the desired outcome rather than trying to fight for it. I hope that this makes sense. In the Tarot of the Orishas, the background, the color behind the bird is like a light blue. And this color, blue, can be related to water, which represents our emotions and also our personal spirit, and if you believe in a higher power, the spirit that is embodied or represented by that. But because it's light blue, it makes me think of like a baby or like freshness or sky. It makes me think of having emotions, but feeling them clearly and being able to assign language to those emotions so that when we communicate them, it comes out not just clearly, but also beautifully, also in ways that other people can understand and receive. Our expression comes off in ways that allow others to connect with us instead of feeling ostracized or feeling rejected. And sometimes we do need to say words that can be painful or can separate, but often the words and the ways that we communicate, the thoughts that we share, can be very supportive in the way that we harmonize with each other and harmonize with ourselves and others. The Ace of Air is a reminder that it's important for us to affirm ourselves, to speak life into ourselves and into our communities and into our spaces. Air is everywhere. It's all around us. It's always within us. And when we don't allow air to flow, when we inhale and we don't allow release, that can get a little dicey in terms of our health, in terms of the way that we're able to sustain ourselves. When a room gets really stuffy, it doesn't feel good. We want to open a window and let that air come through and kind of like cleanse the space, right? So the Ace of Swords is also a reminder that it's not always necessary to express everything that we think, but it is necessary to have a place to release them. So the Ace of Swords can also be like a reminder to pick up your sword, pick up your pen, and write those things down. Write down the things that are difficult to say, that you may be nervous about how they might come off to others or how they might influence the way others perceive you or perceive your purpose or your message. But when we write things down, when we find healthy ways to express ourselves, that is when we're able to really form connections that are valuable, that support and sustain our healthiest and most truthful selves. This energy of finding healthy outlets for our expression is very much associated with the masculine cards. So the Ace of Swords and the Ace of Wands, both of these masculine energies require healthy outlets. If we don't find healthy outlets for our passion and desire, our anger, or our thoughts, our words, and the ways that we create using sound and mind, it's difficult for us to have healthy lives and healthy connections with others. So the Ace of Air also comes to remind us that perhaps there's some sort of expression that we are not releasing in ways that are actually supportive. And this is a time that it's helpful for us to go back to some of the practices that we know and also try something new. If you're used to being a journaler, if you're constantly writing, perhaps try a podcast, perhaps listen to something new. Perhaps those same playlists, those same 4 songs that you've had on repeat for the last 3 months are not hitting, or you're not receiving the message you need because you're not branching out and listening to something new. The Ace of Swords could also be a prompt to ask questions, ask new questions, ask different questions. Because when we try new things, we take new perspectives and we allow ourselves to explore new options and try new things the way Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra do, and get creative with how we use our words and our minds and sound. That is when we're able to really find what resonates with us and allows us to better and more healthily express and receive the truth. So I hope that this breakdown of the Ace of Swords supports you in the way that you're able to interpret and see the messages that are meant for you when this ace pops out. And I hope that you're able to also try new things and see some nuance in the way that you interpret this card. If you like the video, please go ahead and like it down below, and I will see you in the next one here at the Soul Tree. All right, so let's dive in. So to get us started off, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the earth element itself. So this card is from the Tarot of the Orishas. My deck is in Spanish, so you will see Spanish words down here. This just means element of earth, elemento tierra, okay? So the earth element represents all things stability and material abundance. Earth represents our physical bodies. It represents the resources and materials that make up our physical landscape. So for example, the mountains, the trees, the animals, the people around us. Earth also represents our physical senses, the things that make us human. For example, humans, we need to breathe air. We need to eat food. We need to exercise and move our bodies. And we also respond to stimuli. Not only humans do this, right? But that is something that makes us human. It makes us part of the earth. Earth represents the things that we rely upon, the things that we depend on, as well as the things that depend on us. For example, if we live in cities that are on coastlines, or some of us, like my hometown of New Orleans, is below seawater. So we have to build and maintain things using the earth, like levees, to keep the water from coming into our cities. And that's just something that we rely on, and something that also relies on us. So the earth element also represents our ancestors. It represents our money and wealth, because money and wealth are the things that we gain and acquire to help us maintain and receive the things that we need, like food, like electricity, like shelter, like clothing, all the physical material things that help us survive and lead healthy lives. Earth represents health. It represents inheritances. What do we leave behind? What is the legacy that we leave when our bodies are no longer physical? I'm messing up my words right now, which is interesting. So perhaps that is also a comment on the earth element. We cannot rush the earth. Earth is going to move at its own pace. So time is also an element, a quality of the earth element. If I were to slow down and try that again, the earth element represents the legacy that we leave. Sometimes we become so ambitious with what material gains that we have in the physical world, thinking about the future, like wanting to have a comfortable and stable and sustainable future, that we don't really enjoy what we have in the present. We're not really stable and grounded in the present. So when the earth element pops out, any cards that have to do with pentacles or earth, that element is here to remind us to not only enjoy the present and be thinking about the future, but always remember to be steadied and grounded by what is currently happening in the present moment. because the only thing that we really have, the only pentacle that we really have is the present, all right? So I mentioned ancestors before in talking about the earth element, and whenever when we think about pentacles, we bury our ancestors in the earth. When we die as humans, many of our cultures and many of our beliefs and practices suggest that that our bodies decompose. When we die and our bodies decompose, we use them to fertilize the earth. And in that way, the things that we plant into our bodies sustain us while we're alive. And when we plant our bodies into the earth, and then we continue planting seeds into the earth, those seeds also become the foods that sustain our bodies, right? So it's kind of like also representative of the life cycle, the Pentacles element. It represents new birth, it represents fresh life and the ability to buy and maintain new things. But it also represents the work and effort and sweat that's required, and also the loss that's required in order to have newness and brand new things. So before I started this reading, I was channeling a song called Aura by Mariah the Scientist. And the specific lyrics that I was channeling were, "You're the promise everlasting. Where you are, I hope to be." And when the aces come out in a tarot reading, the aces really represent a divine assist. So like this is something that's coming in right when we are completely depleted of resources. We're completely exhausted, perhaps from like the work and effort that we've been putting in, which is also Earth Pentacles energy. But when we receive a pentacle, an ace of pentacles in a reading, it's kind of like we're receiving a reward or a result from work that has already been put into a project or into some sort of investment that we've been working on. It could also mean that there is a new investment that will be coming into our awareness that will require effort. It will require nurturing. It will require us to invest something that we have, but there's a really great and grand reward that awaits us if we put in the time and effort necessary to really nurture that seed. So when I look at this card, I notice the open hand that's offering the coin. An open hand indicates receptivity. So an open hand is not closed. It's not saying no. An open hand is like a yes, right? And it also represents like an offering. So it's not always that when the Ace of Pentacles appears that we were receiving something. The Ace of Pentacles could also indicate, depending on what the other cards aspected around it are, that this is something that we are giving. So if we look at the Black Tarot by Nyasha Williams, this is a card that shows a woman standing in water who is holding a large shell, and this is the pentacle or the coin that she's holding. In this tarot deck, it is the Ace of Coins. The pentacles are just called coins, and coins are made of earth. Coins are made of metals and other materials that come from the earth, and these are the things that we use to buy other earthly goods, if that makes sense. In the current age that we live in, almost all of our wealth is determined by the material and physical coin that we have, either physically or in the bank accounts ethers, right? But this shell also could represent a past time, a time of the past where we exchanged more natural goods and services and counted those as wealth and counted those as elements that made us rich, both not just in the material space, but also in the spiritual space, because this woman is standing in water. It seems like she's learned to navigate waters, which is emotion and spirit, and she's learned how to find gold and good in spaces and environments that are not so familiar or not so clear as the earth, and we're just walking on stable ground and we have nothing really like confusing us. This illustration really demonstrates like the ability to get creative with where we find wealth, with how we create wealth, and with what we determine and define to be wealth. Because she's not holding a coin, she's not holding what we typically would consider wealth. but instead she's holding a shell, and the ways that she regards it, it's valuable because she feels that it's valuable, because in her heart, in her emotions, in her spirit, she regards it as wealth. And so the Ace of Pentacles doesn't always mean that there will be a huge financial windfall, or although it can indicate that. It also kind of reminds us to think about what are the ways that we define our wealth? What are the things that actually feel what are the things that actually make us feel worthy, and the things that make us feel successful and fulfilled after we nurture them? Perhaps she never knew how to swim before, and she's finally like really learned how to swim, and she's finally getting comfortable with walking out deeper into the ocean than she ever has before. And perhaps that is her pentacle. Perhaps that growth, that lesson is what makes her feel wealthy and worthy. In the Rider-Waite Tarot, all of the illustrations look very similar, with like an open hand gesturing open, holding a pentacle. So this is the typical mainstream image that you'll see, but you'll also notice that there's greenery. There's always going to be some element of earth on the Ace of Pentacles card. And this earth is something that's already been there. It's not like fresh land that's just now budding and sprouting. This is land that has been maintained carefully and beautified very carefully. Like these trees were planted so that when the pentacles grow, when there is new growth, that they have a home already. That there doesn't need to be, like, yes, it does take work and effort to maintain, but it doesn't require like a fresh start. It doesn't require the same amount of work and effort that it would take to really just start a brand new garden or a brand new forest. This is something that's already been there. So it's kind of like when the Ace of Pentacles pops up, it's like this is a divine assist with what you've already invested. You're receiving this coin, or you're receiving this growth or this result or this wealth because you've put in the work. So it's kind of just like coming back to you. Like I mentioned the circle of life before. Yes, you've experienced loss before, but the only reason that you're able to experience a new payment or a new renewed experience is because death is required in order for there to be the birth of new life. So the Ace of Pentacles also represents new life and new fulfillment after loss as well. In the Tarot of the Orishas, the aces all include an animal instead of like the typical symbol of a pentacle or a sword or a cup, as indicated in the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. But I love the Ace of Earth in the Tarot of the Orishas because it is symbolized by a bull. And so if you're familiar with astrological elements and symbols, you'll know that the bull represents the sign of Taurus. And Taurus is very much related to the five senses, which are smell, sight, taste, hearing, and touch. And I know that I mentioned the five senses before when I was talking about the earth element. But these senses, we have these senses to keep us present and keep us grounded in joy and pleasure. So the Ace of Earth also represents pleasure and finding like sensuality in whatever moment is happening at a given time. So the Ace of Pentacles reminds us that it's important to make sure that when we are experiencing life, we're not just going through it in chasing, in search of money or chasing the reward. We're really enjoying the process of what it means to maintain our lives, what it means to maintain our bodies. We're really stopping to smell the flowers, so to speak. We're not just walking through this garden that our ancestors and our parents and ourselves and the people who we've brought into the world are working hard to maintain, but we're also really enjoying it. I recently had a dream about blueberries, and when I looked up the dream interpretation of blueberries, I remember it saying that blueberries are God's gift and reminder that not only will we have nourishment that we can harvest from the earth, but it's also going to be nourishment that brings us pleasure. Blueberries taste good. They contain antioxidants which are incredible for our skin, which keep our bodies strong and healthy, and which help push out toxins. And the bull is absolutely a character who reminds us that it's important to keep our bodies strong, to preserve our effort, so that when it's time to make a move, when it's time to use the energy that we have a lot of it. We have enough to really create change in a meaningful and noticeable way, the way bulls do. The Ace of Earth can also be a reminder that it's okay to soften if we feel like there's a hill that we're going to die on and we're refusing to hear other perspectives, other opportunities. The Ace of Earth reminds us that nothing can grow from the ground if rain does not fall and soften it first. Nothing can be cleaned if air and wind don't. That's interesting. I just saw a cat like attack some birds right outside my window, which is very much chaotic earth energy, right? But nothing can be cleaned or nothing can be renewed or refreshed if air doesn't blow through and kind of get all the dust and the cobwebs off of it every now and then. It reminds us that it's okay to be strong and confident and steady and stable on the ideas and goals that we have, because that is the energy that pushes us closer to achieving our goals. But it's okay also to allow the other elements in our environments to soften us, so that we too can be changed by our environments, so that we too can be maintained by our environments as well. If we never move off of like a stubborn mindset, nothing will grow and we'll never make any moves. We're always going to be staying in the same place. The Ace of the Ace of Pentacles, which is the same thing in the Tarot of the Orishas, also has the meaning of being in contact with supportive people in our lives, with having the resources to pursue our goals and maintain the things that are really important to us with the help of others. So it's also a reminder that we don't need to try to go at everything alone. If you notice in the Rider-Waite Tarot, which this card is from the Pulp Fiction. Maybe watch that movie. There might be something in there for you. This card is from the Pulp Girls Tarot deck. But it's a reminder that we don't have to go at everything alone. Like, while we might feel alone, the way this flower is lone on this side of the card here, we really are not. And all it takes is for us to just look around and become more aware of our surroundings and aware of our environment, because in our environment and surroundings, that is where we will also find wealth. If we feel broke, if we feel depleted, if we feel like we overinvested somewhere, we can always find greater inspiration. We can always find greater support and community in the places that we may not have been looking or paying attention to prior to realizing that something may be lacking for us. I also do want to go back to the idea of ancestors here, because the earth element in the Tarot of the Orishas reminds us that our environment sustains us because we contribute to it. If we bury our dead in the earth, they become part of the environment that continues to inspire us, continues to give us the strength and the growth the strength and the guidance that allows us to grow. This also represents like organization and being resourceful with what we have, so not wasting what we have. If we know that we only have 4 X's or 4 crosses to begin with, it's important for us to conserve what we have. The earth element also is representative of the 3 earth signs, which are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Taurus, like I mentioned before, is about pleasure, the senses. It's about being present in the moment and enjoying the pleasures that our environments and our work allow us to harvest. Virgo is about cleaning and releasing the things that we no longer need. It's also about paying attention to detail so that we are making sure to use our resources to the maximum, for the maximum benefit, but also not overusing things to the point of feeling the need to criticize ourselves, or feeling the need to criticize others, or feeling the need to be overly controlling about how resources are used. Capricorn is the sign that is really the ruler of distributing and taking time. Capricorn plays the long game. So if we know that we have a resource that we may not need it right now, but we know that in 2 years we're going to be graduating. So we're going to need to be able to tap into that resource after graduation, because the things, the meals, the lessons that they're giving us in school, we won't have these same teachers when we graduate. We're going to need to leave this place. So what are we going to save right now so that when we need it later, we can still access it, right? It's also about having confidence and being steadfast in the things that are important to us, the things that we invest in, so that later on down the road, we will be able to be replenished and re-strengthened by those things. So the Ace of Pentacles is definitely about resources. It's also giving me very much like strategic stock investment energy. So if you're someone who has stocks, or if you're someone who's just really, really good with your money, the Ace of Pentacles is a tarot card that you may really find like inspiration or identity with. It's also something that reminds us that we never have to worry about investing and being left out in the cold. Like if something is important enough to us and it makes us feel worthy and wealthy, that we will find community as long as we continue to nurture and sustain that thing, because community is also part of our environment. It's part of the earth. I'll just add that the Ace of Pentacles is also a reminder to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. It's also about health. Virgo is the sign of health as well. And that's why Virgo is also the goddess who, she does the weeding. She does the hard work in the moment so that in the future, she has the strength and she has the ability. She cares for herself first. And if you think about the Virgo and Pisces as opposite signs, Pisces is the sign that tends to be more self-sacrificing and takes care of themselves last. Whereas on the other hand, Virgo is the sign that takes care of herself first so that she has the energy and so that she has the motivation to care for others. Because serving others and taking care of others is really what brings them joy and fulfillment. Virgo, which is also represented by the Ace of Pentacles, is the sign that knows how to take care of herself first. And I think that this card here really does a good job of illustrating that, because we can see that she has her beautiful gold bangles here. She also has like her gold earrings here. So she's making sure that she is providing herself with the necessary tools, and prior, she's getting ready. Before she went out to the ocean, she made sure to take care of herself. She did her hair. She put on, maybe simple, but still matching. Like she organized her body first, and then she was able to find organization in her environment. Ace of Pentacles is also a reminder to navigate emotions with a sense of groundedness and not allow the way that we feel to get in the way of what we have. It's like not allowing a mood or an emotion that feels negative or feels depleting or exhausting to make us ruin a relationship that could be really important, or not allowing a brief moment of discomfort, because for a land animal, going into the water isn't always comfortable. Water is not the land animal's natural element. If I just put this bull near water, it probably wouldn't get in the water. It'd probably go drink it, maybe, right? But dealing with emotions is not always Earth sign's strong suit. But the Ace of Pentacles comes to remind us that in order for there to be renewal, in order for there to be growth, we do sometimes have to do things that get us out of our comfort zone. So the Ace of Pentacles definitely reminds us that there's wealth and there's worthiness and there is reward in having the courage and strength to do things that we're not always comfortable with, to be open to new ideas, to be open to self-regulating difficult emotions, and to be open to wading deeper into that water or wading deeper into an experience that's new and maybe unfamiliar at first, but who knows what we can find there. Earth and Pentacles are also feminine energy, so they represent the mother, like when we say Mother Earth or Mother Nature, that's feminine energy, because the earth is receptive. The earth is like a womb that we plant seeds in, and she nurtures those seeds like the womb nurtures a baby and allows it to grow. And that is why we're able to see growth, like plants, like flowers. That is why we're able to see results of what we thought was not there, what we couldn't see. I believe that the Ace of Pentacles also represents having like deep belief in something. And you can think of belief as like this cloud here. This cloud is sort of symbolized as like the hand of God. You may hear some tarot readers talk about the aces being like the hand of God, handing some divine assist. And you can also see that in these other ace cards here. Each ace has a hand coming out of a cloud. And that's in the Rider-Waite Tarot. In other tarot decks, there may be different illustrations, but in the Rider-Waite, each card has a hand coming out of a cloud. And you'll also just notice that there is no body attached to the hand. So it's kind of like, in order to receive that new assist, we have to believe that it exists. When we bury the dead and we are experiencing loss of a loved one, of a friend, of a major historical figure, yes, their bodies are gone, but the contributions that they made while they were alive, while they were in a physical form, are very hard to forget often. And the reason that many people are immortalized or they stay alive past the date of their death is because we believe in whatever they contributed. We have been inspired by them. We have been changed by what they were able to do here on earth. And like I was saying earlier with this card in the Black Tarot, this shell may have no value to a Wall Street, tycoon, but because this woman loves the ocean, because she has found value in going beyond the barrier or the boundary that she thought she was able to. Perhaps she's like, I can't swim. I don't want to go in that deep ocean. But she has found the courage and bravery to do it. And because she knows that the ocean is full of so much abundant beauty, she has found value and she believes in the worthiness and value of this shell. It may not cost anything. It was free for her to find, but to her, this could be worth $1 million, right? So going back to the idea of the hand with no body or the hand of God holding the coin and offering it in the aces, this shell or the coin or the pentacle or whatever is being offered in that tarot card, whether it's a cup, a sword, a wand, it very much has to do with belief. Do you believe in the value, in the support? Do you believe that you're worthy of knowing the truth as is given in the Ace of Swords? Do you believe that you're worthy of taking that bold action as is indicated in the Ace of Wands? Do you believe that you're worthy of that number that you may be asking for in a work negotiation for perhaps getting a raise or higher pay in a new position? If you believe it, then you'll receive it. It's very much going back to that idea of if you can see it in your mind, you will hold it in your hand. So if you can see the reward in your mind, when you plant a seed, the day that we plant the seed is not the day that we harvest the fruit, and it's not the day that the flower grows, or even the day that it buds, right? But if you believe that this seed that looks nothing like the end product is going to grow into that thing, when you plant that seed, you know that you're going to hold it because it has to do with your belief. And yes, it absolutely has to do with science, but it takes a little bit of belief when you're planting something, because when you put it in the ground, who knows what's going to happen to it? Who knows what water or wind or fire may come and change the environment? But as long as you believe and as long as you really know truly in your heart that this tiny mustard seed is going to grow into a mighty mustard tree plant, then it will. And I think that is a major lesson of the Ace of Coins. The Ace of Coins also talks about healing from ancestral wounds relating to lacking self-worth or lacking self-belief, because as long as you know that you're worthy and you believe that truly, it is true. So that's the Ace of Pentacles. I hope that this reading gave you a little bit more clarity and a little bit more guidance for your own readings, or perhaps for readings that you do for others. And I hope that this colors the way that you see the Ace of Pentacles when it pops up in readings, and also the meanings that you apply to it based on how you associate meanings with the images on the card. I'll see you in the next one. So the next ace we have is the Ace of Fire, also known as the Ace of Wands. The Ace of Wands is fire energy, and it is depicted as a disembodied hand holding a large stick, typically with a few leaves or vegetation on them. The Ace of Wands is the card that represents big dick energy. I don't know if I can say that on YouTube, but we'll see. But the Ace of Wands represents that energy because it also indicates male virility. As you can see, it has like a phallic sort of shape to it. And all that really means is the Ace of Wands indicates very bold and suggestive action. Typically, when the Ace of Wands comes out with the Empress, it can have sexual connotations or meanings toward it, but the general meaning of the card has nothing really to do with sex. It really has to do with creativity and creative potential. Before we get into the actual ace energy, I'll just talk a little bit about the fire element. So one of the things I love about fire is I like to think of fire as the last element of the four to be given to humans. Because fire is a very creative, powerful, and transformative energy. When you think about fire, fire is, so I know that there's like a story, there's a Greek story, there's a Yoruba story, there's so many origin stories about where fire came from. But in the Tarot of the Orishas, the story is that Shango, who is the male embodiment of Libra energy, he is the bringer of justice. In the Greek and Roman pantheons, he's known as Jupiter or Zeus. God gave Shango fire to bring down to humans. And this was so that humans could experience warmth. It was so that humans could experience like joy and excitement, because that's also associated with fire. Let me make sure that I'm saying this right, because I'm not trying to lie to y'all, actually. Let me just look it up real quick. Okay, yes. This is facts. Shango delivered fire to humans so that humans could experience warmth, so that humans could experience passion, so that we could learn how to channel anger, not so that we could experience it necessarily, but so that we could learn how to channel it in ways that amplify the positive qualities of fire. Fire is a very fast-moving element. If you're someone who's ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, you may be familiar with the Fire Nation. Like the only thing that they know is how to go, like fire. When you set fire to something, as long as it has something to catch onto, it will never, ever go out, right? Unless it meets something that's stronger than it. But fire is a very, very powerful, strong, and forceful energy. And it's represented by the zodiac signs Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So when we think about the fire element and we think about the ace element, the aces represent everything that encompasses the beginnings. What does fire start, right? The ace represents like the first match that really catches. It represents like a really strong and powerful match. That one match that you strike can provide excitement, passion, heat, light for the entire world, because the ace is the strongest one. It's the largest one. It's the one that was given by the divine hand, not just by, it's not just like a random stick that you found on the ground. In the Tarot of the Orishas, it's represented as an embodied lion. And the reason for this is the lion is the king of the jungle. It's known as the king of the jungle. This isn't because the lion is the strongest. It's not because the lion is the most, powerful animal in the jungle. But it's because the lion is the most ambitious. It's the most confident. It's the one that has the most bravado, if you will. And in order for the rest of us, if you think of all of us as like animals in a jungle, we need the lion because the lion brings the jovial energy, the quality that allows us to really celebrate and feel excited and happy. The lion is the one who comes in looking absolutely fierce. If you know anyone with Leo placements, they probably have amazing hair, and it's almost like just seeing them with their glorious hair, like no matter what they're going through in life, just looking at someone with Leo placements has a sort of enthusiasm and has a sort of like inspiring quality to it that allows us to remember our inner flame, what gets us really excited, what gets us going, what we're passionate about, what we love. And that's why the lion is considered the king of the jungle, according to lore and also in the tarot of the Orishas. The lion is also the one who is not going to do the most work. The lion's not going to work the hardest, but the lion's going to go to everyone else in the jungle and say like, wow, you're doing an amazing job. Like this makes me feel proud of you. The lion lives in a group of other lions called a pride because all they need is each other's enthusiasm to boost their courage, to boost their energy, to keep going. The lion is also an animal who's not afraid to go after what it wants. And that's really what this energy, what the boomstick, I've heard some tarot readers call it. Shout out to Green Eyes. If you listen to Perfectly Imperfect Tarot with Green Eyes on YouTube, she definitely calls the Ace of Wands her boomstick because it kind of like makes things happen. Without fire, it's hard to get the meal going. Like you can do all the prep work you want for your food, but without heat, without fire, you're not going to really get anything to change or to become what you want it to be. And without someone like a lion or like that who has that lion or Leo energy supporting you, it's sometimes hard to maintain the energy necessary to like get to the finish line, if you will, or sometimes even to get started. With the Aries and Sagittarius energy that are also represented by fire, it's and I know that I pointed to this third symbol here and said Sagittarius earlier. This is really the sun, but the sun is your heart. It's your core. It's the core of who you are. Your heart pumps the blood to the rest of your body without you having to do much work, but just off of the sheer loyalty and love that your body has for you, and just off of the sheer like purpose for keeping you alive. And lions, the ace, fire, all of these elements really remind us of our purpose. They remind us why it's important to keep going, why it's important to use and rest after we use our energy. I was going to say something else and I got a little sidetracked. The Ace of Wands pops out when we're remind us that the things that we do, the things that we chase, the causes and habits and behaviors that we're loyal to, that we always go back to, they're not just a means to an end. They're also a way that we support ourselves and feed our communities. Because in our hearts, most of us have a purpose or a cause that goes beyond ourself. That's not just self-centered, which sometimes our causes can be, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for the most part, the causes that we are committed to and loyal to, the reason that we get up and do our best every day is because there are other people who rely on us. There are other things that we support. We know that there are challenges that we have to face when we're following our dreams and listening to our heart's song, but we know that in order to get to the other side and be with the people that we love, the challenge is worth it. Like there's not really anything that isn't worth it. If you're familiar with the song Ain't No Mountain High Enough, there's no challenge or mountain high enough to keep the lion to getting to its food. There's no challenge or mountain high enough, and there's no valley low enough or no water, river deep, wide enough to prevent the lion from getting to its goal and bringing it back to serve its pride, to serve its community. And I really think that that community aspect is illustrated well on this card. And by the way, this is the Daily Tarot by Biddy Tarot. But if you can see in the background here, there's a little castle. no one lives in a castle by themselves and is happy. Like, maybe someone does, but typically a castle, a large home, represents community and just like other reasons why it's necessary to maintain courage, to maintain confidence, to know that we have the power to transform. Because we don't just transform our environments or ourselves for the sole purpose of doing it. We transform our present, we transform our environments to make sure that in the future leaves have better than what we started with, and also to make sure that the people who left us this castle, whoever built this castle and may no longer be here in the physical realm, may have passed on, their work was not in vain. So we're going to have the tenacity, the courage to defend this castle, to defend what we've built, because we know that it's valuable and it's important to the legacy, to the future. It takes a lot of courage to go after what your heart tells you rather than just what other people tell you is important. It does take a lot of courage. It takes a lot of support. In the Black Tarot, the Ace of Wands is represented by a large baobab tree and then two, I want to say they're like deer or elk, bowing to each other. So courage is not just the ability to like push your way or burn your way through something or steamroll. It's also the courage to fall back. It's also the courage to bow down and see others as your equals. It's the courage to share, to be in community. If you see someone who may not be feeling as confident or as nurtured or as supported or as energized as you, it's the courage to meet them where they are and remind them of all the qualities that make them courageous. It's the courage to remind them that they also have a heart that beats and pumps blood to every other part of their bodies without them needing to do anything. You're worthy just because you exist. That is also related to the phallic and like masculine energy of this symbol. Often people believe that, at a certain age, it's time to go sow your wild oats, right? And that doesn't always mean sex, like I said, but because of social interpretations and definitions, often sowing your royal oats or sowing your wild oats has that kind of sexual connotation to it. However, sowing your wild oats could also just be having the courage to buy that plane ticket or, gas up the car and get on that road trip. Go explore something new, somewhere you've never been. This is also Sagittarius energy. Sagittarius is the adventurer, the explorer, who knows that the world is here just for me to play and learn and explore and grow, expand my mind, expand beyond my horizons or what I thought was the end of the story. It's also, you can think of the wand as like a pen. It's also the ability to use your energy, use your desire and your passion power to transform the story of your life, to transform who you thought you were or who others may have thought you were, and become what you never thought you may have been able to be, right? So the Ace of Wands, when it pops up in readings, it serves as a reminder that everything that we do has a purpose that's higher than us, even if that purpose is just to remind us of our connection to the divine. Even if that purpose is just to remind us that every action that we take has an influence, a power to transform, which is the fire energy, a power to transform something that was raw, something that was dry, something that, maybe was a wet blanket, and make it into something that is warm, something that's useful. We can turn that old tattered quilt that, was made from old stories that no longer serve us. We can use that as kindling for the fire that heats up the new home that we've built for ourselves or the new home that we've built for each other. We can turn an old landscape that is dry and, I'm not really sure I'm going with this anymore. We can use smoke and things that make our environment hazy or difficult to navigate, we can actually use that to cure something or to, how do I say this? Let me look at these cards some more. Often when we're following our dreams or speaking our minds or listening to our heart and doing what our heart tells us to do, we may receive like negative feedback from others. Like, why are you being so loud? Why don't you cut that mane down? That fro is too whatever. That hair is too nappy. That voice is too loud. You're being dramatic. I know that the lion and fire signs can often be associated with drama and just a little too, like, team too much is the fire signs sometimes. Also the water signs, because these are also related to emotions like passion, anger, just like speed, right? Like sometimes the fire energy can be a lot, but the Ace of Wands is also a reminder that we can use all that heat, we can use all that feedback and transform it into the things that allow us to really connect with others. If you ever have received feedback that you're too much or that you're too big or you're too loud or too boisterous or whatever, it's really not that. That's not the case. It just means that what you're offering is not on a energetic match, is not an energetic or vibrational match for the people that you're trying to give it to. And so there's always community, and we can use the feedback that we receive to do some self-reflection, absolutely, but also to bring us closer in connection with people who can relate to that energy and that passion that we are expressing. The Wands and fire energy is also related to authenticity. The lion is an extremely authentic character. The lion can't be anything but a lion. It can't be a duck. It can't be a spider. It can't be a bird, right? So the fire energy is really encouraging us. The Ace of Wands encourages us to be our authentic and true selves and be true to our heart. Because when we move from the heart, when we act from the heart, it's very difficult for anyone to deny. Typically, our heart tells the truth as long as we find healthy ways to channel it. And the Ace of Wands is also, with its structure, it's kind of like thinking of it as a channel from the heavens down to the earth. If you believe in your heart's song, if you believe in the story of, if you believe in the truth that your heart is trying to express, then you can become a channel for the divine to express itself on earth. And you can really like build bridges and, create sanctuary from what may feel like a prison. You can create community from what may feel like enemies. You can find yourself reflected in others as long as you speak from your heart. Because when your heart shines through, it's impossible to ignore it. It's impossible to see a fire just randomly spring up. What is the story of Moses and the burning bush? It's impossible to see a bush randomly catch fire in the middle of nowhere and act like that's not weird, right? Or act like that's not at least some sort of divine act. So I believe that the Ace of Wands pops up to really just remind us of the divine power that we also have here on earth. And it also is here to remind us that our worthiness and our impact has to start within before we can see it on the outside. If we are making fire and we just don't believe that this fire, if we're rubbing two sticks together, we will not rub those two sticks together to create fire with the same confidence and tenacity if we don't believe that a fire is actually going to start. We're just going to, half-ass it, and then it's not going to have the results or the impact or even the fervor or the energy that we want it to have. We might make a fire, but it's going to be weak. And if we don't tend to our inner fire, our inner flame, by being creative, by expressing our authentic voice, then it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. I like to believe that everything that has life, humans, dogs, ants, we are all the universe or God expressing itself in different ways. And the same way that we each have our unique fingerprint, no one can do the same, can make the same mark on earth that you can. If you speak from your own authentic place and you use your inner flame to heat up and bring light and illumination to the world, no one else can do it the way you can, but your spark can also spark someone else's inner flame. And that is when you hear like the terms like twin flames or like soulmate and terms like that. The way that we attract people who feel like home and feel like family or soul, like a kin spirit, is by expressing the light that's within us. Our only job here on earth is to be our authentic selves, because no one else can do it. If you are currently trying to live a life that someone else told you to live, or that you feel obligated to live because you see other people doing it that way, that's not using your inner flame. That's trying to be someone else's flame. And you're actually losing and missing out on the flame that you have within you. So the Ace of Wands is also here to remind us that it's our job to keep this flame alive simply by existing in our most authentic way. So I hope that this reading of the Ace of Wands card brought a little bit more enlightenment, understanding, and clarity to the energy of this card. And I hope that as you pull your own cards or do readings for others, that you're able to find a little bit more nuance to the way that you understand this fire energy, especially as you take a look at the illustrations and apply your own meanings to what you notice and see and what stands out to you on these cards. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.